episode 1.2 of Axiom. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that sparks strong opinions. In this series, we'll continue to explore how our minds work, the social factors at play, and how they all tie into the complex issue of immigration. Let's challenge our axioms. In our last episode, we talked about how our brains have certain limits and biases that shape our thinking. We all experience a phenomenon called bounded rationality. Essentially, it means we can't process and evaluate every bit of information out there. Instead, we rely on what we absorb from our environment while also being impacted by our own internal motivations. Now, let's apply this understanding to migration. How do these cognitive processes and social influences affect our views on immigration? And how do our individual experiences connect to the larger picture of an anti-immigration sentiment? To do this, we'll return back to what I called the environmental and motivational causes. Our environment plays a crucial role in shaping how we perceive the world. Last time, I explained how our environments, so the people and places that surround us, build a lot of our subconscious bias and knowledge of the world. Now, tie this into immigration. You need to know that we have a natural, inherent incentive to preserve the beliefs of that environment and participate in the group that created them. We can't escape the fact that it introduces biases into our thinking. When it comes to migration, our immediate surroundings have a powerful influence on us. We tend to identify strongly with the cultural, racial, religious, and political groups we belong to. We have a natural function to see our own group as special and important, while viewing other groups as distant and different, and often not understandable. That's just how it is. Unfortunately, these implicit biases can lead to prejudice and animosity between different racial and cultural groups. And the longer we've been part of a particular group, the stronger these biases become as they're constantly being reinforced. Now let's talk about the politics of it. Politicians often exploit these naturally occurring divisions and subgroupings. They supply information that confirms the prejudices of certain social groups in order to appeal to and gain support. They might even falsely link specific nationalities or racial groups to crimes or economic problems. I'm sure that a lot of people can remember former President Donald J. Trump characterizing Mexican migrants as criminals, drug smugglers, and rapists, among other things, feeding into negative stereotypes. To be clear, you can, and it is important to address crime, drug smuggling, sexual offenders, and the like. No one is going to argue that such things do not exist. And it would be incorrect to argue that certain things do not occur more or less often in certain demographics. However, to claim that a certain group is made up of nothing else than malicious individuals and weaponize that stereotype is manipulative, harmful, and downright incorrect. You see, our environment shapes our concerns, and when we're associated with a group that constantly emphasizes the fear of violence from another group, we tend to focus more on evidence that supports those fears. So you may be extremely sensitive to the fact that you see someone from a certain group on TV convicted of a crime, and that will stick with you. And you will probably forget that your favorite high school science teacher also is from the same demographic. It becomes a cycle of fear and negativity which fuels anti-immigrant sentiment. And once those sentiments take hold, they're not easily shaken. It's hard to implement any changes because people are resistant to departing from long-held beliefs. That is how we can get stuck in a long period of time in which we as individuals or we as a society view a certain group of people as inferior. These environmental factors contribute to a political climate that threatens local identities, perpetuates baseless fears, and even incites violence and exclusion against immigrants. On top of that, our natural personal motivations come into play. We naturally have a strong desire to preserve the status quo, especially when it comes to our perceptions of national identity or social hierarchy. When immigrants bring customs and values that seem foreign to us, there's a tendency to reject them out of fear that they'll disrupt our way of life. But here's the thing. This kind of denial hinders our ability to effectively address important public policy issues. It stands in the way of social, political, and economic changes that are essential for the progress, well-being, and protection of one's citizens. Politicians know how to play on our fears and manipulate our environment, further perpetuating these concerns. It's a cycle that not only affects our personal perceptions, but also prevents the creation of evidence-based policies that could alleviate or address some very real issues. Now let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture. Since we are now relating the idea of bounded rationality to a political phenomenon, there's one thing that is very important to address. One of the most effective ways of overcoming bounded rationality is the idea of the institution. The institution, in theory, overcomes individual biases and agendas for a more holistic assessment and outcome. Allow me to challenge that for the institution of politics. When it comes to policy creation, we're dealing with a complex political landscape. Different branches of government and various actors have their own agendas and limitations. I think it would be excessively idealistic to infer that politics are not riddled with environmental and motivational causes, even more so in the intense partisan party politic game that has come to be the norm of democratic practice. Coordinating everyone's interests and arriving at a comprehensive immigration policy becomes a monumental task under these circumstances. To close out this episode, I'd like to take a second to bring this all back to the concept of bounded rationality. Understanding the role of bounded rationality in our perceptions of immigration is crucial for addressing the challenges it presents. By acknowledging our cognitive limitations and actively working to overcome biases, we can strive for more comprehensive, evidence-based policies. This includes taking seriously every group's concerns and understanding where those concerns come from. It requires open dialogue, empathy, and a willingness to challenge long-held beliefs in order to create a more inclusive and equitable society. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember, the topic of immigration is multifaceted, and it's essential to approach it with an understanding of bounded rationality. By recognizing the impact of our environment, the manipulation of our fears, and our natural motivations, we can begin to navigate this complex issue more effectively. In the next and final episode of this series, we'll apply all of these broader concepts to a specific example of immigration and see if we can see examples of our bounded rationality at play. In the episode description, you'll find a link where you can leave me voice messages to share your thoughts or opinions. I'd love to hear from you, and who knows, your voice might even be featured in an upcoming episode. You can also leave me any questions you have on my new wisdom profile. Let me know if you're still wondering about something, or if you just want to pick my brain about something in particular related to the episode or not. Until next time, take care and keep questioning the axioms that shape your world.